Hi, I'm Nat.
And I'm Guy. And Tucker Carlson did an expose today on
Thomas Crooks.
Thomas Crooks, and it was absolutely excellent. I thought I was going to watch a couple of minutes this morning. I could not put it down. I watched the whole thing. We're going to get into that. We're a little bit late today because you had a guest appearance. We won't say where, but...
Yes. But thank you so much to those who invited us. You'll see it soon on our social media.
Yeah. Okay, let's get into the main article. Oh, actually, I wanted to put another article before Thomas Crooks. So why don't we get into that?
Yes. So from Holden Culota, Tiffany Cianci, I don't know, is the second person this week to allege that Susie Wiles, not Wild, has crushed Maha.
Yeah, and Susie Wiles is somebody I was talking about on the last episode. I must have brought her up 5 or 6 times. Her and Marco Rubio really have Trump's ear, and they are poisoning the administration. I kind of said that, but I wanted to bring this up just so people get an idea of how they're poisoning the administration. Susie Wiles seems to be very much a corporatist and going away from the MAGA base here. And she's doing that currently in the Maha movement, but she's doing that throughout the administration by placing personnel.
In order for Maha to actually function, we needed all of the health agencies to buy into Maha. And what happened was, I think that Trump's team very clearly saw that there was immense popularity on both sides of the aisle for the idea of making our children healthy again and making our food supply clean again.
Right. Hard to argue against that. Yeah.
How do you not want to see our children healthy? We are sicker than any nation on the planet.
Right.
Right. But it would have required us to get buy-in at the EPA and the USDA. And instead, what happened was to pacify the donor base. We got, in my opinion, probably a Susie Wiles negotiation, because she was also, remember, she was a huge lobbyist and negotiated all of Pfizer's demands during COVID, right? Susie Wiles made the trade-off. We're going to give Bobby Kennedy HHS. We're going to use Doge to plant a bunch of like darlings of CEO Accent Healthcare people all around him to roadblock him. But then what we're going to do is we're going to put in agrochemical lobbyists in charge of the EPA.
Right.
And we're going to put a bunch of lobbyist darlings for industrial food companies in charge of the USDA. And then we're going to consolidate more power, which is why our food costs are skyrocketed, right? They're talking, nobody's talking about doing anything about the monopoly that is limiting our ability to have access to clean meat in this country. And now we're going to buy it from Argentina. That's the next thing we're going to do, is buy it from Argentina. But if we had put somebody that was actually Maha aligned and wanted us to have access to clean, healthy eating over at the USDA, and we had not stripped all of the programs that were actually furthering that agenda, we could be making massive differences right now. And instead, we gave the people a carrot in Bobby, and then cut him off at the knees with the agencies he needed to work with him.
Right.
And it's horrifying to watch.
Okay, and I will say this, they have cut Robert F. Kennedy off at the knees, but he is still doing a lot because he's a lawyer, because he's fought in big government so many times on so many landmark cases. He has the connections, he knows where to go. So even when they try to freeze him out, he's still able to get things done more so than anybody else in the administration. I also like Tulsi, but RFK is really the money man, and his running partner was Shanahan. She's phenomenal as well. She's still working behind the scenes, but Susie Wild is a cancer. She's a lobbyist, and she is putting a lot of the personnel in place. The base is getting one person like RFK, and she's placing 10 lobbyists strategically around to kind of guard the gates. She is a real corporatist.
And once again, we're seeing this happen during the last administration, that Trump's picks and some of the cabinets and some of the administration was not working in his favor. And we're seeing that we saw that it came from other people and other people's picks that kind of messed up the first administration. And it is dangerous to see that within this first year that's already happening. And a lot of people thought that had been quelled and quashed, but apparently no.
Well, in the first administration, he was completely frozen out. The second administration has been a lot better. He got some good personnel in there. The problem is it's not enough. And that's why you're seeing this the separate movement starting to emerge of what's true American first versus MAGA. MAGA seems to be going corporate the longer and longer it goes on. I think it's just the certain people have Trump's ear, and that's Susie Wild and Marco Rubio.
Wiles, yes. And speaking of Maha, Rafa says, hello, happy Friday. Happy Friday to you, Rafa.
Good to see you.
And he says, greetings from a 10K race. That's
Oh,
why I
wow.
said, speaking of Maha, I cannot walk further than like a few blocks down that way and that way. Even when I went back to Vancouver and I try to walk around, I'm not a exercise person.
Well, I used to love exercise before my back went out, and
Well, you still love it. It's just
I just can't do it.
we're working on it.
Well, yeah, I can do things that just make me feel like less of a man because it's not hard enough like I used to do.
I'm actually good when I do exercise, but I just don't like to do it.
Yeah.
I don't
You
like to
used
be
it
out.
for a while there. You were doing it.
Yeah. Doing what
Maybe
was that
after you have
called?
a baby, whenever that is, you'll start doing exercise
What
again.
was that stupid thing called where you lift things?
A CrossFit.
CrossFit.
I got you into CrossFit, and I got you to try
I
jujitsu.
think I got you into CrossFit.
No. I was doing CrossFit years before you. I got you into jujitsu. I think you did about 2 classes, and you
Yes, I
bought a
gave
bunch of gis, and you got everything. Talking about you were an assassin. You were far from it. But the pink gi was nice. We still have
Yes,
it
I
in the
still
closet.
have it. I could still go back, but I just don't like being in pain. I'm sorry. Speaking of assassin, from Tucker Carlson comes finally some sort of investigative journalism again. He says, "Who is Thomas Crooks?" And he did release this today, I believe,
Yeah,
yesterday.
and this is the whole 35-minute expose. It was absolutely phenomenal. I highly recommend to watch it. We need to really be pressuring the FBI now. It looks like they were completely involved in grooming these kids. They were completely involved with Antifa as well. And it's not just the Biden administration FBI. It seems like the Trump administration FBI is continuing the cover-up. We'll just watch a couple minutes so you can get an idea of it.
And it's a little bit, it's at 1.25 speed just for safety.
These are videos the FBI has worked hard to make sure you haven't seen. They're from the Google Drive account of Thomas Crooks, the man who on July 13th, 2024, showed up at the Butler County, Pennsylvania fairgrounds and tried to assassinate the frontrunner, Donald Trump.
And look what happened to our country. Probably 20 million people. You know, that's a little bit old, that chart. That chart's a couple of months old. And if you want to really see something that's said, take a look at what happened.
That day, Thomas Crooks came within a quarter inch of destroying this country. And yet, a year and a half later, we still know almost nothing about him or why he did it. That's because, for some reason, the FBI, even the current FBI, doesn't want us to know.
What's up?
Okay, we can maybe leave
Since
it
it started
there.
their
I do highly recommend watching this expose. It's probably the most important documentary that's on the internet currently.
And it's good to see Tucker moving away from the topic of Israel for 3 seconds
Well, and not just moving away.
and doing investigative journalism.
Yeah, this was real investigative journalism. And if you're interested in investigative journalism, he really goes through the work and how it was done. It's very, very interesting on every level, not just the information that was exposed, but how he got that information. He just doesn't say a private source gave it to me. He shows step
Like
by
Candace.
step how they got it, kind of proving their work, giving themselves credibility. Candace has been doing the same thing as well.
She does a lot of source. Someone I can't say, oh, I can't play this photo, but I got it. I can't play this video, but I have it.
She baits people in, is what she does. And then when they call her out, then she shows her work.
There's still a bunch of work missing, but okay.
Okay.
But moving on to Germany. From Lord Bibo, German Chancellor wants Ukrainian men to go back to Ukraine and fight. He also wants to stop the flow of young men from Ukraine to Europe. They should stay and they should fight. And he says, I agree if you support the war and if you wanted to continue to defeat Russia, go and fight, else you're a parasite.
Yeah, I think it's about to get a little crazy. They took all these Ukrainians as refugees. I have a feeling they're going to cut off their refugee status and forcefully send them back to Ukraine to fight a war that they don't want to fight. A lot of people in Ukraine don't want them fighting. And a lot of people in the West no longer want to be in this. They want to see a resolution to this war.
Und ich will, damit das Bild vollständig ist, auch hinzufügen, ich habe heute in einem
He's
längeren
speaking in
Telefonat
German,
den
so I don't know if you want to
Präsidenten
translate.
Okay, hold on. I'll read the subtitles.
We'll just go through half of it, maybe.
Yes. So it starts, and I want to make the picture complete and also add, I have today, in a lengthy phone call, I asked the Ukrainian president
dafür zu sorgen, dass
to ensure that young men in particular from Ukraine,
in großer Zahl,
in increasing numbers now, again, not in large numbers, come to Germany, but that they serve in their country. They are needed here, there, and in Germany, and they are needed in Germany. The transfer services for these refugees will be changed, that the work incentives are greater than the incentive to stay in the social benefits transfer system. So we also plan for concrete changes here.
Okay, that's pretty good. And we do see all these EU militaries massively exploding in their numbers. They're really trying to get their recruitment numbers up. There's rumors of conscription happening soon. The citizens don't agree with this war. The EU elites are trying to push these men towards this war. If they do have at this war, millions die. Who's going to be left? Migrants and women, and then this leftist ideology is going to be cemented in concrete because nobody's going to be left to vote against it or stand up against it.
And they do want to continue having it happen because from Russian news, European Commissioner Valdis Dombrovskis warns taxpayers you will have to open your wallets for Ukraine if Russian assets are not seized.
Okay, and let's talk about this for a second. There's hundreds of billions of dollars in Russian assets that are sitting in the bank. The European Union is all about seizing these. If they seize these assets, other countries like China, India, every other country that has money in European Union banks is going to withdraw that money, and their banking system is going to absolutely collapse because there's going to be no trust left in the EU banking system or the UK banking system. Seizing these Russian assets is the worst idea they can do, but they seem dead set on it. They tried to get the United States to do the same. The United States is refusing. We're going to kind of have to see what happens here.
It says, do you want me to play it or read it? Is it in English?
Let's see if it's in English. If it's not, you can read it.
Okay.
We also discussed possible alternative options. It has to be noted that given the sustainability concerns and challenges Ukraine is facing, the support has to have strong grant-like features. So alternative option would be for the EU to fund the reparation loan to Ukraine through borrowing instead of using the cash balances associated with immobilized Russian assets.
Okay, you can stop it there. And the thing is, they're trying to get this ready because they want the citizens to ask the government to seize the Russian assets. They're hoping the citizens don't realize this would be the collapse of the EU banking system. But if they don't seize the Russian assets, they're saying they're going to have to tax the citizens to the high hills, and the citizens aren't going to like that.
And we have been talking also about countries around the EU wanting to prepare and continue to fight the war and make their citizens go fight the war. And Germany now, from Reuters, German cabinet passes bill for voluntary military service, but there is an asterisk to that where conscription might be coming, not just yet. So
Yeah,
Germany's...
and the last time Germany had a military, we all understand how that worked out. There is a huge rift between the elites and the leadership of these countries and the citizens. Let the citizens vote if they want to go to war, and let it happen country by country.
And we also saw recently that the AfD in Germany was also debanked and censored even further. But Germany's cabinet passed a draft bill on Wednesday. Now it has passed that would introduce a voluntary military service as the country seeks to bolster national defenses over Russian security concerns. The text also opened the door to a reintroduction of compulsory enlistment. And Germany is not the only country that is trying to do this. And Canada is going about it in a way that is even more, pardon the word, retarded.
Well, this is a really funny story, this Canadian story, and I'll explain it a little bit, but first we'll read the headline and a little bit from the article. This is a really deceptive act that the Canadian government is doing. This is a liberal Canadian government. They're currently disarming the civilian population. Well, they're trying to arm the military, but they're trying to recruit an ideologically aligned military from the civilian class.
And weaker. So Canadian military will rely on an army of public servants to boost its ranks by 300,000. Federal public servants would be trained to shoot guns, drive trucks, and fly drones, according to a Defense Department directive. So essentially, all the HR people, the people that rubber stamp things and licenses, are now going to have to learn how to train in the military.
Yeah, this is a liberally aligned public service. The average age of the public servant in Canada is 45 years old. they're out of shape. They're going to lower the fitness standards and lower a lot of other standards in order to fill out their military to that 300,000. Number one, to placate Trump. Number two, they're scared of what happened during the truckers convoy, and they've just passed a bill to disarm the citizens of Canada by making massive amounts of pew-pews illegal. They're going to go confiscate that, but they can't have other conservatives that might say no to the citizens because they align with the citizens. They need to get a civil service that actually does not align with the civilians and will take their guns and will implement laws if there are more lockdowns and things of this nature.
Exactly. So, I was trying to get the one that's not paid.
Because it's really hard to create to recruit massive amounts of liberals into the military, and when you do recruit them, they're very much become conservative minded over time because of the nature of military service. Number one, but number two, because there's a hard base of conservatives in the military. The Canadian military has already tried to get rid of the conservatives in the military, replace them with immigrants and women, and now they want to bring liberally aligned civil servants into the service by the number of 300,000.
Yes, I found another article because that one wouldn't let me read it, but Top Soldier has second thoughts about recruiting public servants for reserves.
Oh, and this was, if you go up, she's in charge of the military in Canada, and she started bawling her eyes out about the Indigenous people live on TV. She is a sorry excuse to lead the Canadian military.
Canada's top soldier appears to be having second thoughts about recruiting public servants to augment reserve forces, adding that they are already doing enough for defense. Chief of the Defense Staff, General Jenny Carrigan, and Defense Deputy Minister Stephanie Beck, both women, signed a document on May 30th, 2025, launching a plan to boost both the reserves and what is known as the supplementary reserve. The supplementary force is currently made up of inactive or retired members of the Canadian Forces who are willing to return to duty if called. At this point, there are 4,384 personnel in the supplementary reserve, but in the case of a national emergency, that would be boosted to 300,000, according to this document.
And that's the thing. I would be scared of the Canadian military if there's a national emergency and they lock everybody down, take their weapons and violate their civil rights, there's freedom of speech, things of this nature. And you're going to have a completely liberally aligned military at that point, led by what looks like a bulldog lesbian.
But now, following a significant pushback from the public after the citizen revealed the plan, Carnigan appears to be having second thoughts. It is not focused directly to public servants. She's trying to now walk it back. Our public servants are already contributing extensively to the work that we are doing in defense. She did not provide a comment to the citizen about why she had reversed course. She also did not explain why now she claimed her plan never focused directly on the public servants, even though she wrote the mobilization plan should initially prioritize volunteer public servants.
Yeah, if you have a bunch of out of shape 45-year-olds and you actually have to fight a war with other nations, the Canadian military is going to be the laughing stock. They need to recruit healthy young men.
Well, Rafa has an idea.
Well, what's Rafa's idea?
To do this, Rafa says, why don't you open a martial arts academy, guy? You look like Cobra Kai material.
Well, I used to teach MMA, but my back is too far gone at this point. I do have
We're
hopes.
trying to rescue it.
Yeah, I have hopes to train again one day, but I'll never be in good enough shape to teach again.
He might.
Oh, we'll see. Okay.
I mean, you can just, aren't like old martial art guys like really, really old and they just stand there and say, do this, do that, choke.
I like to lead by example, the sign of a real leader. Just like I do with you.
Yes, you lead me to doom. From Wide Awake Media, former Vice Chancellor of Germany, Robert Habeck, says the regulation of algorithms of X or TikTok through the application of European legal norms is a central task. We cannot put democratic discourse in the hands of Elon Musk.
Yeah, and this is becoming a real problem because the EU has now passed legislation that if big tech wants to be in the EU, they're going to have to abide by. That's number one. But number two, they've already started censoring over there. We got a couple other stories later on how they're doing it. But basically, they're taking right-wing content creators and they're putting them behind a digital ID wall, meaning you can look at everything you want on X except for certain creators. And if you want to see their post, you can, but you have to log in with a digital ID. And they're going to start making a list of all the people looking at that content, I believe. Mm-hmm. And then they're going to probably debank them like they just did their political opponents, the AfD in Germany.
Regulation of algorithms of X or TikTok through the application of European legal norms is a central task. In other words, we cannot put democratic discourse in the hands of Elon Musk and Chinese software.
I agree with the Chinese software part, but
Well, and I will say this, I think it's gonna be very important, this Tesla phone, if it does come out, if it's connected directly to satellite and it can get around all these restrictions.
he should call it
The free speech
the
device.
Starlink phone.
Yeah.
My Tesla. Tesla's the cars.
No, but he has a $1 trillion bonus if he can increase the value of Tesla. So his 3 big inventions that are coming out, which is the flying car, the Tesla phone, and the robot, are all going to go under the Tesla banner. So he can get that $1 trillion bonus.
The flying car.
It's supposed to come out next year.
We'll see. I was going to say something and now I forgot. Oh, speaking of TikTok, I think I have finally caved and we might actually start having
Oh, you have an antenna.
presence on TikTok. Thank you. It's been a long day.
Okay, what were you saying about having a presence on TikTok?
That, as Rafa has suggested multiple times, we might actually start a TikTok channel page. I don't even know what those are.
Maybe if you wait a minute, I can give a sincere thank you to Rafa. He's been honest about TikTok. I've been on her about TikTok. She has been resistant, but it looks like over time, me and Rafa have broken her down. She has now agreed that we can open a TikTok.
Well, because I have seen that a lot of the discourse
In Mexico.
for news and politics does happen,
Especially the conservative discourse.
on both TikTok and Facebook. So I have to bite my tongue and still talk negatively about TikTok and how bad it is, how it is controlled by the CCP and algorithms. Even though they're sold, they're still proprietary to them. But
I don't mind TikTok.
I'll just kick and scream while I do it. But speaking of restricting content and the plans that the EU is already putting in place, Eva Vardingerbrock, who I really like, and you should follow her to see what's happening up in Europe and the northern region of Europe. She says, my content is being restricted in the EU under the Digital Services
And she's
Act.
a right-wing content creator, and this is one of the first times they're really implementing this digital ID towards the right wing. They also have debanked the AfD. We've mentioned it a number of times, but they're going at political parties, political content creators. They want to try to rig elections by rigging the information. And if they don't like the outcomes of those elections, they're just going to discard the results and hold that election again. They've done that twice now.
She says, under the guise of online safety, they put a search ban on my account and flagged my posts as sensitive, age-restricted content. The EU hates free speech because it threatens their power, and that is why all governments hate free speech and try to get rid of it.
Yeah, and these digital IDs and digital currency laws, November is the first time they're really starting to take effect. So it's important that we watch the EU very closely because they're the first ones to really implement this. And we're going to see how people kind of get around it if they can and what kind of techniques they use to censor people. It's very interesting how they censored this young lady.
So, update. Turns out I'm not being shadow banned by X. I am being shadow banned in the EU only by the EU, obviously. Because for those of you who've been following me, you know that I've been warning you guys about the Digital Services Act, this online safety law that the EU put forth a few years ago. And one of the requirements that that law has is that to protect children online, certain content has to be age restricted. Obviously, like they're talking about things like pornography or very aggressive or violent material. But also, yours truly has been flagged as someone who creates sensitive content. And so all of my posts now have this sensitivity warning, and you have to actively go and click it and verify your age to be able to see what I post and what I write. And my name, when you search for my name, just won't pop up in the search engine. You will get every single impersonator and fake account under the sun presented to you, but not mine, not the verified 1 million follower plus profile. I don't know. The fact that I posted my speech again attacking Ursula von der Leyen 3 days ago might have something to do with the fact why they flagged my profile. Might. It's just an educated guess, I suppose. But exactly what I said also.
Okay, and I will say when she says you have to click the age verification, you're going to have to upload your digital ID to get that content. This is what the EU is doing now. I think we're going to have to come together as a worldwide community, and people from other regions, hopefully the word gets out who are these content creators kind of getting banned that are right-wing, and that people from other countries will start following them to get that information, and it will also get them views, get them monetized, and help them to keep going. Because the big thing is they're trying to ban them in these regions, hoping that they won't have any monetary incentives if they get banned in those regions. But if people from other regions start following and they get big followings, it could actually work against the EU here. And there will be other ways to get the information in.
And Eva is great because she talks about globalization, the EU, but also help the farmers in the Netherlands fight for their right to continue farming and farming good food. And she is a mother, a Catholic. She's great. So go follow her if you don't know who she is.
Well, and I will also say the Mexican government seems to be 2 steps behind. I think they want to do the exact same thing. The problem is they're negotiating a tariff deal with Trump right now, and they don't want to do anything to harm that. So if they start censoring their population, especially their conservative population, Trump won't like that. But as soon as that tariff deal is done, I would expect some serious censorship to be coming to Mexico.
But they are censoring.
They are,
and
but not as much as the EU.
No, but one of the good things about Mexico being chaotic is that they don't have the mechanisms necessary to actually enforce full-on censorship. They have forced some citizens that were just using the right to free expression to apologize publicly on X. And also yesterday during her morning conference, we don't have an article about this, but I just found it egregious. Claudia Sheinbaum did a whole deep dive investigation into all the people. So tomorrow here in Mexico City and a lot of other Mexican states, there's going to be these huge uprisings and protests against the government and against the threat of security that
basically the president of Mexico went live on national TV and started doxing right-wing content creators that she doesn't want to be promoting a protest, which she says the people have a right to do. But why the president of Mexico is doxing right-wing content creators is beyond me.
Not just doxing, but giving the wrong information about who they are and what connections they have. So that is actually dangerous, especially in a country like Mexico, where sometimes speaking out can end with your head not being there anymore.
And I will say, as much as I don't like Claudia Sheinbaum, I have praised her a lot on these tariff negotiations. And as much as I didn't like AMLO before her, I have praised him about the ports that he built and the railroad in that region that is bringing some economic growth to that region of Mexico. So when, even if politicians that I don't like do things that I do like, I point it out. And even with politicians I do like, when they do things I don't like, I'll point that out too. I constantly do it with Donald Trump.
But the problem is that censorship is growing in all countries, not just the ones we highlight. And people have to be aware of that and have to start using their voices to speak against it before they get censored. Because in Canada, it happened too late.
Yeah, and Mexico doesn't seem to be quite as aligned with the EU, Canada, and the other Western countries as Canada is. But I think the United States holds a lot more sway over Mexico than they do a lot of these other regions. So it's going to be interesting if she's actually able to get censorship and ban content creators.
And Rafa says about us joining TikTok, he says we have to take the battle to their own ground, as much as I don't like it. I'm guessing mostly it'll be your shorts and more guy content, but in Spanish it'll be me. Rafa also says she's awesome about Eva Vlardinger-Brock, and also that she has been accused, and yes, I knew this, she's been accused of rice supremacy for promoting drinking cow milk.
Yeah, of course.
A lot of people have been accused of that.
Well, I don't know how she's drinking cow milk when the government's actively poisoning the cows in the EU right now. But
she has been fighting for farmers and their right to farm and feed the public. But now, going on to Secretary of War Pete Hegseth, I do like the change of name. President Trump ordered action and the Department of War is delivering. Today, I'm announcing Operation Southern Spear, and this concerns all of us here. Led by Joint Task Force Southern Spear and Southcom, this mission defends our homeland, removes narco-terrorists from our hemisphere, and secures the homeland from the illegal substances that are ending our people. The Western Hemisphere is America's neighborhood, and we will protect it.
Yeah, and I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm going to go down a little bit of a conspiracy path here. Tomorrow are these massive protests all across Mexico. And if they have agitators planted in these protests and they get violent, I think the United States is going to hit Venezuela most likely tomorrow. If they're going to strike, I think tomorrow would be the perfect time, at least in their eyes. I think when they do that, because there's so many protests in Mexico, they may have strikes within Mexico too, which they won't admit to. They'll actually have other cartels take credit for it. I think they're going to align with one or two cartels and consolidate power and then roll those cartels into the government.
And I will say, if you are in Mexico or somewhere in Mexico and planning to go to these protests, just be very careful because, again, there will be agitators similar to what we see in like the US, Canada, etc. We do have black bloc here as much as people want to deny it. So be careful and go there early, not late, because late is when all the bad people come. And then again, we might have news from Venezuela, and Venezuela might be a dress rehearsal for what they are planning here as well.
Also, Trump can't just hit Venezuela. It will be completely untenable for his base. His base will not agree with it. But if he hits Venezuela, connects that to Mexican drug cartels, and comes into Mexico as well with the cooperation of the Mexican government, he will be able to sell that to his base because he's going to sell it as he's got to secure the southern border. If Venezuela does get hit tomorrow and these protests are violent, I definitely think it's the U.S. that put agitators into those protests. But we'll have to kind of see what happened. I might be on a conspiracy trail here, but if it does happen tomorrow, I'll be the first to say I was right.
And again, it is interesting that this was just announced from the U.S. as this U.S. escalates from El País. U.S. escalates its campaign against narco-terrorism in Latin America. Interesting that the protesters are also using those terms, but they are very common terms here in Mexico. With the launch of Operation Southern Spear, the statement from the head of the Pentagon, Pete Hegseth, comes just hours after the 20th attack on a drug smuggling boat, which left 4 people ended. And we know that part. Hold on. Hegseth did not specify what he was referring to, although it can be inferred that he is naming and formalizing the campaign of extrajudicial military strikes against alleged substance-running boats in the Caribbean and Pacific as part of the pressure measures against the Venezuelan regime. In January, the Pentagon had announced the creation of the Joint Task Force Southern Spear Force for the deployment of surface vessels and drones to, among other duties, conduct anti-narcotics operations. And we also saw and spoke about on Wednesday the aircraft carrier Gerald Ford also moving into the Caribbean and positioning itself close to Venezuela.
Yeah, and we also know behind the scenes, although publicly Sheinbaum is saying she's not cooperating, behind the scenes she has been cooperating a lot with the American administration. Everybody is focused on this is the largest consolidation of U.S. military since the Iraq War. Everybody thinks it's going to go into Venezuela, which it is, but I think they're going to work with the Mexican military if they do and make strikes with inside Mexico. Now, they will not take credit for that, but I'm definitely looking for that tomorrow. Mm-hmm. Okay, let's continue on.
And to your boy. From Fuentes Updates, before American support fully vanishes, Israel aims to obtain $100 billion over a 20-year period. America first, they said, except it's the opposite.
God, and I'm trying to stay away from these Israel stories, and I'm hesitant to put Fuentes on the channel, but man, I could not deny this clip. And if the American government and Trump gives $100 billion to Israel and then goes and strikes Venezuela, the midterms are not going to be looking good for him because that's going against everything that MAGA wanted and going against everything that really puts America first. We don't want these forever wars. We don't want more wars. When I say we, I say the Americans. And they definitely, at this point, a large portion of America wants to stop funding Israel. If he gives them $100 billion, it's not going to go well for his base.
Mm-hmm. So let's see what
the kid says.
Yes. Child.
A 20-year foreign aid bill where we will be funding Israel to the tune of almost $100 billion. We'll talk about the details of it because that is where it's pretty outrageous. It's called a Memorandum of Understanding. And for the past 3 decades, we have an MOU. It goes for 10 years. And it has the United States giving Israel, under the current deal, $3.8 billion per year for 10 years. And this current deal expires in 2028. Now the Israelis are recognizing that come 2029, maybe there won't be an appetite for the United States to give foreign aid to Israel. So they're saying they, in the next year, want to get a new MOU that doesn't just go 10 years, but goes 20 years, and they're seeking another increase in the amount of aid. So somewhere in the ballpark of $4 billion per year for 20 years, locked in. And they want to slip this one past the goalie while pro-Israel Trump is still the president. America first, they said, except it's the opposite. Trump, go figure, he is literally now being used as a last-ditch effort to subvert and actually obstruct America first. They recognize that whoever the next president will be might actually be forced to be America first. They say, so Trump, well, you're still president. Stop them. Give us as much money as you can.
And I will say, I'm not totally against giving Israel money. I was watching a debate the other day, although I'm not for it on a long-term basis and to that much. But if you stop funding them, China's going to step into that hole, and they're going to link up with the Israeli intelligence, who has a lot of information on America. But giving short-term stipends of money to Israel until they figure out how to de-link with Israel militarily would be a good idea. You don't want to go cold turkey and stop funding them, because they do have a lot of information on the United States, and China will fill that vacuum. But I don't want to see a 20-year agreement. I don't want to see a 10-year agreement. At most, I want to see a 1 to 2 year agreement, and then have to renew that every year or two until you can figure out how to decouple militarily.
And with whatever comes next, or whoever comes next, hopefully, probably J.D. Vance, hopefully not next to Marco Rubio, but whoever comes next does have to make it clear that they are going for the whole America first. Otherwise, the left actually does, and the Democrats do have a chance, because as we saw Mamdani in New York, they're starting to understand that the whole narrative that they should be playing with is, yes, socialism, communism, but for the American people. So if they take up the mantle of saying that they are for the American people and the American people only, and that they want to stop it with so much immigration, etc., then they have a big chance. And we just saw that happen in New York.
Well, also, they've been making these 10-year deals, and we see what Israel has been doing in return. You're not buying their loyalty by giving them $3.8 million over 10 years. They're spying on the U.S., giving intelligence about the U.S. to other countries. You can keep them loyal if you only give them money for a year or two. And if they break or violate intelligence or spy on the U.S., cut off the money and don't sign another deal. So it gives you far more leverage to sign short-term agreements with Israel rather than one long one. But like he kind of said there, Israel knows there's not going to be support come 2029 from neither the left and most likely most of the right. So they're trying to secure a 20-year deal here.
And Rafa says, just 1 kilometer left. So wait, you're running a race right now? It's late. It's like, I mean, here it's 8:30 p.m. Are you running, or are you training? Or are you following someone who's running?
He must be training.
Okay.
And how is he texting?
I know, that's why I'm asked. That's why I'm wondering.
Messaging.
Well, what's happening, Rafa? Are you running? Are you supporting someone?
Are you having a baby? What's going on?
That's more than a 10K race to have a baby. But continuing on this vein from Anomaly, your friendly reminder that his Zionist friends were calling Charlie Kirk an anti-Semite. If they'll call him an anti-Semite, they'll call anyone an anti-Semite to morally blackmail them into submission.
Yeah, and Israel's big mistakes right now are going so hard against people that are actually their allies. They're going hard against Megyn Kelly now. They're going hard against Tucker. Even Charlie Kirk was starting to realize this. You don't have to go hard at these people. These people are actually on your side. And the more you go at them and the more you call these people anti-Semites, the less they want to cooperate with you.
And to see Megyn Kelly they're trying to destroy her, I think is a futile effort, because she has proven that she's changed her mind on the things that they're accusing her of.
They didn't like the way she interviewed Ben Shapiro, and she just refused to take a side between Ben and Tucker. She tried to play it neutral, and you can't play it neutral, at least in Israel's eyes.
But I think that's the best way to go at it.
And the other thing, they're going hard at all these people that aren't anti-Semitic. They're calling them anti-Semitic. And then they have a leader of Netanyahu that just keeps starting wars. If they just replace their leader, get somebody a little bit more reasonable, and stop calling everybody an anti-Semite, I think people would actually be on Israel's side.
And same with calling everybody Yazidis. It loses significance if you just call everybody that is supporting you what you're claiming they are.
So like, let me ask a question. If we were to remove, like if people said what Tucker said is anti-Semitic, I don't hold that view, but it's like a lot of people on Twitter are like calling us out and like, whatever, that's not going to happen. But if we were to cancel Tucker, would anti-Semitism increase or decrease?
I think increase, because that means any supporter of Tucker Carlson's statement therefore makes them anti-Semitic.
So association.
Mm-hmm. But I got text about you, Megan, saying, why is Megan like doing the bidding of Hamas? I was like, what are you talking about? Megan's the best. Like, what? She's amazing. And I said, why are you texting me about Megan? And I, at that point, and so this is what they don't understand. You and I, Megan, and Tucker is in the same category, and they've tried to go after Tucker.
Yeah.
Is that and the more you attack our moral character, the more we're going to double down in a direction, because 100%. Screw you, I don't do it that way, okay? And I will say this, the behavior by a lot, both privately and publicly, are pushing people like you and me away. Not like we're going to be pro-Hamas, not like we're going to, but we're like, honestly, the way you are treating me is so repulsive. I have text messages, Megan, calling me an anti-Semite. I am learning biblical Hebrew and writing a book on the Shabbat. I honor the Shabbat. Literally the Jewish Sabbath. I visit Israel and fight for it. And there's another article out in the Times of Israel today. I could read it on air. I was just reading before I got on. Charlie, what are you doing? Like, what am I doing? I'm sorry. Like, let's just take a step back here. Like, I'm an American citizen.
Okay, yeah, and that first clip from there with all those young kids that were sitting around him, those were the heads of TPUSA different chapters, and there was a lot of questions they were bringing to Charlie, and Charlie was kind of having to have these round circles, and that was kind of the beginning of his awakening. I don't think he completely went over, but he was definitely listening to them, and he was trying to hold the coalition together.
And I think that is what's important, and that's what I should go back to. Like, why is the right or the conservatives or the Republicans in the U.S. fracturing over two other countries that are not America? Like, stop, debate it, get it over with, and move on, because otherwise they'll continue to lose support on both sides.
They're not able to, because Israel's really putting them to the sword here, saying you're either with us or against us. There's no middle ground. And
but I think they can make a middle ground if most of them just go to the middle.
Yes, I agree.
You fix it, solve it.
I also agree, if they have a debate and it comes down that they don't want to keep funding Israel, Israel is going to have to come up with a new strategy there, and it's not going to be, we can't just cut everybody off, because if the only people they have left are the conservatives, they won't be able to cut that side off. Otherwise, they have nobody left. Mm-hmm. So they'll have to be a little bit more reasonable, and that's really what I think Israel needs to do at this point. Find a leader that's a little bit more reasonable, and be a little bit more reasonable when people are actually on your side, like Charlie Kirk was, like Megyn Kelly was, like Tucker Carlson was.
But also not doing these purity tests of are you on our side or not. Let people, independent content creators, that's in the name, supposedly, allegedly, that's what created this whole ecosystem and that made it work for the US and that made MAGA work and America First or whatever you want to call it. So let them do what they do and let them question.
Well, yeah, and then just have Ben Shapiro actually do a debate with Fuentes or whoever he disagrees with, rather than trying to cancel him. The right does not like to see when you come out with these cancellation purity tests. We want to see a debate. We've just been, I think the right has a little bit of PTSD when it comes to cancellation, because that's what the left did for a decade.
Mm-hmm. And now they want to do it to themselves, which is insane. But we have been talking today about the massive protests that will be happening in Mexico, not just Mexico City, but all over Mexico, that are allegedly being organized by groups of Gen Z kids, Gen Z youth. However, there is some questions about where the financing, planning, what the goal is, etc. But the President Claudia Sheinbaum, has not been reacting positively. She has been doxing content creators that have just spoken about it, not even supported the protests. But these protests are against her government, her party, Morena, and the insecurity and the unsafety that many feel and the frustration that they feel at not just the current government, but all governments, with them not being able to handle the cartel situation and just the levels of insecurity that there are in the country, and now for more than 20 years. And now we see more young people. This is from Agustin Antonetti, again, no relation, Héroes, or sorry, I have to read it in English. Heroes, a group of young people from Gen Z, have just painted Narco State in because they put up walls to protect our national palace, which is like our White House.
They put up double walls, actually.
Yes,
they put up concrete barriers and steel barriers. They are freaked out about these protests tomorrow.
Yes, because a lot of people have been trying to compare them to the protests that happened in Nepal. I don't really think it'll go that far, hopefully, but there will be people, there will be Black Bloc Antifa as well, and others that are there just to agitate. However, they've been going overboard with the protection of the National Palace, and obviously Claudia will not be there tomorrow, but a lot of people will, and it continues. The government had erased a little bit, a little graffiti that was painted and that said the same, but now they painted it in giant block letters, and they did. And they won't be able to erase it as easily, and we'll just have to wait and see how it goes tomorrow. We'll obviously report on it, but it's all up in the air right now. So that is like our White House. It's called the National Palace. It used to be a palace. Now it's where the president lives, and they painted right in front of it Narco State, and they have to leave up those walls because they can't take them down because they're scared about tomorrow.
They put up further walls, but you made a good point because we were having a conversation earlier about what were the fundamental principles of conservatism when Trump kind of rose. And I said it was anti-war and it was pro-free speech. That was the basis. And then they used that to go after the youth and other things. And then you said, yeah, well, but in Mexico, we don't really go to war. And then I said, well, the narcos is kind of Mexico's war. Mm-hmm. So if the conservatives kind of use this anti-narco rhetoric combined with free speech and to fight online censorship and digital ID, meaning you have to have online anonymity if you want to speak freely in Mexico, especially against certain political topics. So I think I could see those things emerging as the foundation of a conservative movement within Mexico.
But in Mexico, it still has to be consolidated. It still has to be thought through. We don't really have a right-wing party. We don't have a right-wing movement, a conservative movement. Nothing like that exists and hasn't existed, I think, in Mexico's history, fully fledged like that. It has always been pretty left-leaning or center.
Well, you also
center-right
you have to say, because people are going to say there is the PAN. The PAN, poses as right-wing, but really a lot of their policies are left. It's kind of the same in Canada, where the right-wing parties are really very left-wing. Now, they luckily got Pierre Poilievre in Canada, who's actually a little bit more right-wing, but the leader before him in Canada was literally just a liberal saying he's a conservative, and that's kind of what we have here in Mexico with the PAN.
Not even in Mexico, the president, and not just this one, the one AMLO, the one before Claudia Sheinbaum, used the word conservative and the word right as an insult. And most people just associate conservatives with traditional values. However, the political current of conservatism, number one, doesn't exist, but also in Mexico, most people don't even know what it means or what it actually seeks. Yes. Rafa says, sorry, I thought I was going to say more stuff and I forgot. Rafa says, it's one of those races with lights, but I'm accompanying a slow friend. What races with what lights?
I don't know.
I mean, you do exercise. You would know what's a 10K with lights.
But I usually do. I would always do my stuff in the daytime. I never did nighttime races.
Well, maybe it's like one of those party ones.
A party race, yeah.
Yeah,
maybe.
that does not sound like a party to me. But good luck, Rafa.
Hopefully, the person
stay hydrated. That's
hopefully
all I
the
know.
slower person you're saying you're doing this with isn't your wife, who's currently pregnant.
Yes.
So hopefully she's not.
Well,
doing
no, but pregnant
marathon.
women need exercise. That's a myth that pregnant women shouldn't.
Yeah, but a 10K would be ridiculous for a pregnant woman.
If they've done them before. And
okay, wait. When
if
you
they're not heavily pregnant, then yes.
When you get pregnant, we'll have you do a 10K.
Sure. I can't do a 10K right now. What makes you think it might give me superpowers? Who knows? From Timcast News, the youth want to drink.
Well, I will say one more thing. There are those protests tomorrow, and I hope they don't get too violent. Because Claudia Sheinbaum has been doing a good job when it does come to the tariffs. And I don't want to see the tariff negotiations kind of get derailed because there's civil unrest in the country. She's been bending over backwards, bet more than any other country to get this tariff deal done. They have to be in the final stages here. Those can be completely derailed if there is civil unrest in the country.
Well, and that's why she's so scared. And the problem is, yes, it's not just Claudia Sheinbaum. It's not just Morena. The problem is this has been an ongoing issue for the past 30 years or more, and it is the system itself that is broken, but Morena has taken it a step further and not tried to fix anything, but break it even further down. So that is why people are angry, and they point at Claudia Sheinbaum and Morena because it has been pretty obvious that they have not been able to manage it even as well, quote unquote, as AMLO was able to manage it. They've just completely continued to disintegrate everything.
Well, I will say this, AMLO before her did build those two big, what do you call them, docks on each coast with the train.
Shipping ports.
Shipping ports with the train in between. Although that's been going well, if they don't get a good tariff negotiation, that the economic growth that has happened there could collapse. So for the economic future of Mexico, it's really on Claudia Sheinbaum to get a good tariff deal. If she manages that, those ports they built with the train is going to look like a genius move.
And Walker, hello, Walker. Walker says, hello, how are you guys? Good. I'm a bit tired because I had like a 2-hour interview before this. It'll come out soon, so hopefully you'll guys see it. I'll link to it whenever it's available. But yeah, we went all over the city trying to get there, coming back. But here we are. Sorry if my brain's a little off today. But now, and during that interview, we actually talked about what the young people of Mexico might want, how to get to them, how to speak to them, and how it's shifted as to what the priorities are. But in the US as well, and we have seen it with these past recent elections in New York and other very blue states, but still. From Timcast News, the youth want to drink billionaire tears.
Oh, why don't we just play the clip here? And this gentleman is often on WDW Pro with you.
Yeah, so Rasmussen's Mark Mitchell says the GOP could win over Gen Z for decades if they act instead of talk. And he is great, so follow him as well.
And I think I disagreed with his analysis yesterday because we showed him a clip a little bit. Most of his analysis is done on polling because Rasmussen is a polling agency, but I really do agree with him here.
If the Republican Party can do this, not talk about it, do this, within a year, they will rule for 50 years. They will capture the youth. They have to do a 2-point plan. One is everything that Andrew's about to talk about, a Charlie Kirk plan of economic populism. And yes, there will be some economic disruption. The youth want to drink billionaire tears. That's part of the process. And then 2 is visibly reform government. The FBI raided Mar-a-Lago like the Gestapo. Just putting somebody else in charge of it doesn't restore institutional trust. There needs to be a visible reform process. People have to see into the investigations, see the firings, see the root cause and corrective action about all of our agencies, the FBI, the CIA, the IRS. What about the regulatory capture of the healthcare industry? Healthcare is going to destroy our republic. And the youth know it because their healthcare, their individual plans cost almost as much as rent. Talking about a 10% reduction because of price negotiation with insurance companies is not adequate. It's old politics. You will fail. The oligarchy needs to be smashed. The only question is it with a right hook or a left hook?
And I will say this, 50% of the U.S. spending is done on healthcare, yet their costs are out of control. There is so much corruption provided by the uniparty to the insurance companies. They're spending 50% of their money on healthcare, and they're getting very little for it.
And you and I have been talking about what would be the next steps for both the GOP and the DNC in the States, but also here in Mexico, and how populism is a strange word in Latin America because all the populist governments we've had have been left-wing, and they've left essentially just despair along their wake. However, in the US, and I think this is true, both sides are sick and tired of the establishment because now both sides of the establishment have proven to be bad. Both the Democrats with figures like Hillary Clinton, Bill Gates, etc., but also on the right who both haven't done much, but are also the billionaires.
George Bush, Dick Cheney. Trump was signaling a change, a populist change, a change that the youth really wanted. He didn't deliver in his first term. He started delivering in his second term. Some bad people have his ears. He needs to get back down to business, deliver on the promises that he did promise. Otherwise, you're going to see the conservatives split, and they're going to want a real hardcore America First candidate.
And that also might not be super convenient for everybody. I think Trump had a good plan. However, he has been derailed exactly by that. And we even see commentators and young Gen Z commentators that were very supportive of Trump, like Brett Cooper, like Isabel Brown, at some point, Nick Fuentes, now he's gone off the rails, insane, Elijah Schaffer, etc., go against him because they're saying the youth isn't getting what they were voting for. And now it's both sides of the youth, both left and right, even the insane ones on the left and the crazy ones on the right, that are kind of uniting to say the country that you and the countries that all of the both baby boomers, but also a little Gen X apathy have left us is not convenient. And it's even worse for us. A lot of them are saying, I don't know how true I would say it is, but a lot of them are saying you left it even worse for us than you did the millennials, and you screwed over the millennials. So imagine how Gen Z is now feeling, and then Gen Alpha.
Yeah, I know you don't like Fuentes, but he is talking in a lot of sense right now. And he is the one calling out the administration. And as much as a lot of people don't like him, he is screaming from the mountaintops. A lot of people are hearing him. They want to push the administration back to the promises they made. We do have a couple clips coming up later of left-wing populists that have won elections recently, and they are promising the world a bunch of free shit, free grocery stores, this and that. I think there's going to be outside left-wing money coming into these districts so they can deliver on these promises before 2028 and kind of sell false socialism to the masses, and then try to win the election based upon the success of this so-called socialism. But then when they win in 2028, they're going to see it was all an illusion and there was nothing really there. It was outside money coming in to fund this.
And it can be done at a larger scale and larger scale. It can be done in very small districts or very like in a mayoral race like Mamdani. But if you try to do it for everybody, then, I mean, the debt skyrockets, as we know, and that's why socialism, communism doesn't work.
They could pull it off with Trump tariffs. That would be trillions of dollars coming in. They could fund their socialist dreams. But we know when liberals fund socialism, what really happens is they line their pockets with the money. That's what Gavin Newsom did with the homeless situation. Over $1 trillion spent.
And the fires.
And what did they build? 1,144 houses.
Speaking of houses and private property and the non-existentness of it in Canada, from Mario Zelaya, Cowichan tribe were just granted 780 plus acres. The revenues are 140 plus million. Thank you. Say that for me. I can't say numbers. Most of us is from us as taxpayers. They have $120 million in cash on their reserve. They are allowed nearly 290,000 meters.
Okay, you can stop reading. You're falling apart here. Go down to the clip. I think he's going to show the clip of this dumpster. They are literally just throwing trash next to the river in this huge garbage pile. These tribes want to claim that they're the stewards of the land and they're not going to treat the land like the white man would. Well, we're about to see how they're treating this land, and the government's currently taking private property away from private citizens and giving it back to these tribes so these tribes can turn this land into dumpsters.
And again, this all came from the land acknowledgements. This is what it leads to. And follow Mario Zelaya.
They'll tell you land acknowledgements are harmless. Next thing you know, there will be no private property. You will own nothing, and they'll tell you to be happy about it.
I wish I didn't have to make this video, but every single Canadian needs to see this. Check this out. You don't already know the Cowichan tribe was awarded a huge part of Richmond, and private ownership in Canada is now in jeopardy. They won a ruling from the Supreme Court that handed them a huge chunk of land where people's homes are situated on. Those homes that people have mortgages on, they can't get mortgages anymore because the title is no longer theirs. It belongs to the Cowichan tribe. Same tribe has a reserve in Duncan, BC. In that reserve, there's 298,000 cubic meters of garbage. Most of it is construction site garbage. And this is the part that makes it awful. That is a river. You never, ever want to put that kind of a dump near a river. There's no trees growing there. Look at all that. What happens is when you have toxic waste, lead, asbestos, construction materials, that land that it's on right now, when it rains, there's something called leachates, and that leaks into the river, into the water, and it goes all the way downstream. It affects animals, fish, and yes, people. Here's the most unbelievable part of it all. And this was brought up to the chief, this being on their reserve, on their property. Listen to what she said.
It's everyone's jurisdiction that has to take care of this, not just Cowichan tribes.
What she just said is that it's their land, but our problem.
We're glad this is getting the attention it deserves, and to work with the governments on the jurisdiction.
To work with the government on jurisdiction on their land. Figured I'd go on their website, get some more information on their finances. In 2024 and 2025, they had a surplus of over $50 million. In fact, their total revenue was nearly $150 million. Already guessed, most of that revenue, yes, came from us, the tax. And I decided to take a look at their balance sheet, and they have over $120 million in cash and cash equivalents. So they did it illegally, they did it for a long time, they did it in their own land, and they want us to pick up the tab, despite Canadian taxpayers funding nearly $30 billion a year for First Nations. And I say this in the most respectful manner. I think I figured out the jurisdiction. It's yours. Your land, your jurisdiction, your problem.
And that being said, that was a huge garbage dump. I'm inclined to believe it's not just from the tribe, that they were taking garbage from other regions, getting paid to take that garbage and dumping it on their own land and making money off it. And now they're expecting the Canadian government to clean it up.
And not just in Canada, also in Australia, and we're starting to see it in Mexico, this whole turn towards Indigenous identities and the fact that they might start to use that as a way to divide the population. I can't think today. As a way to divide the population is the next step, because that also allows them, again, by giving back the land or by giving them money as reparations, etc. That allows them to, God.
Okay, let's go into the next
really
story. Let's go
struggling
into the
today.
next story, and I believe it's going to be China here.
My brain is off. It's always off, but it's even more off today. From Defense Intelligence, China warns that the U.S. that continued military surveillance flights near its coast will be met with firm countermeasures, calling Washington's actions a direct threat to regional stability. I think it's just a jet coming in.
Yeah, it's a spy plane. Okay, that being said, I'm going to say this. I'm anti-war. I do not want to see the U.S. strike Venezuela. I do not want to see them come into Mexico. I do not want to see them fight Israel's wars. I do not want to see them keep supporting the Ukraine war. But in this particular case, I'm not saying I want them to go to war with China, but China is constantly infringing on Taiwanese airspace. They're constantly infringing on Canadian airspace with these weather balloons. They did the same thing in the United States. But now that the U.S. is doing it to China, they have this, they have a big problem with it, and they're trying to tell America to back off. Well, America should tell them, we're not going to stop flying over your airspace, sending spy planes over your airspace until you stop infringing on Taiwanese airspace. It's a daily routine that China is going over Taiwanese airspace, and they're doing it with fighter jets that are fully mounted with bombs.
Also, the U.S. from Marco Rubio says, Marco Rubio says it's not up to the EU to decide international law. I don't think that the European Union gets to determine what international law is. Although they think they do.
As much as I am against the U.S. striking Venezuela, the EU thinks they can tell America, don't strike Venezuela. You have to strike Ukraine. You have to fight this war. You can't fight that war. It's a little bit ridiculous. The U.S. is their own country, so they're going to decide who they do and do not fight. The EU is going to get them so deep into a bunch of shit in Ukraine, in the Middle East, here and there. They want them to fight all these wars. I'm sure the EU is not going to have an actual problem if they do strike Venezuela, because the EU does not like Venezuela at this point.
I don't think that the European Union gets to determine what international law is. No, they certainly don't get to determine is how the United States defends its national security. The United States is under attack from organized criminal narco-terrorists in our hemisphere, and the president is responding in the defense of our country. I do find it interesting that all these countries want us to send, and supply, for example, nuclear-capable Tomahawk missiles to defend Europe. But when the United States positions aircraft carriers in our hemisphere where we live, somehow that's a problem. So I would say that the United States is, and this president has made very clear, his job is to protect the United States from threats against the United States, and that is what he's doing in this operation. I don't think that the...
And we're going to kind of have to see what does happen here. Okay, let's go into the next story.
Speaking of defense, from Lindell TV, Christy Noem might be out at the DHS. Sources say Glenn Youngkin could step in.
Yeah, I don't think this is a good move. I didn't know much about this, but I did watch this clip, and it was very concerning, the person they're going to put in charge of the DHS. It's not somebody with American first policies. It's an absolute globalist.
Department of Homeland Security.
DHS Barbie Secretary Christy Noem might be leaving her role at the start of the year as Secretary of DHS. As I told you the other day, that's according to many sources I've been talking to, the absolute truth. But she wouldn't necessarily be gone from DC because she's considering more. The question is, who exactly might be replacing her? Remember I teased that the other day? Well, I told you, I promised that I would tell you, and it's none other than outgoing Virginia Governor Glenn Youngkin, according to our sources, who would be stepping in to fill that role as he continues to pad his resume for greater hopes of perhaps the presidency one day even, or, maybe some other political office. Now, what would that be like? Some would applaud that. However, what I have to tell you, considering I live in Virginia, in which he's governor now, he is himself an open borders, pro-immigration, pro-free trade, globalist Republican. So when it comes to DHS, we're leaping, I think Kristi Noem has been good in a lot of ways, but we would be going head first into legal immigration. And the question is really MAGA? Well, surely President Trump remains dead.
And that's going to be the problem. Are they going to try to broaden what legal immigration is with the head of the DHS? As much as I kind of give Kristi Noem a hard time because she was always ready for a photo shoot when she went on these raids. And I thought it was a little bit ridiculous with the amount of makeup and her hair. She actually did follow America First policies with that, and she was doing a fairly good job. I don't want to see a globalist take there. I don't want to see somebody that's going to broaden what legal immigration is. That's what we've seen happen in the EU. They say they're stopping illegal immigration, yes, but they're broadening what legal immigration is, welcoming more people into the country and actually making it harder to get these people out in the end.
And again, it is sounding and reminding us of the first Trump administration where yes, maybe the initial picks were good, but it ended up devolving into something that it was not what people voted for. And a lot of the policies were not able to be implemented because of the people that were there to stop them from actually happening, even though it was what both MAGA, America First, and the president wanted to do.
Yeah. Okay, let's go into this next story. And yeah, I don't mean to kind of pick on these kids, but I don't think taking Palestinian immigrants or refugees into Western countries is a good idea. They should be sending them to Muslim countries where they can integrate much more easily.
And yet none of those countries want to take them. Wonder why. From Eyal Yacobi, Palestinians relocating to Belgium get off the flight wearing shirts with GUN's, pew-pews, printed on them, RIP Belgium, and these are little kids.
اهلا وسهلا اهلا وسهلا
I don't want to get dinged for the music, but...
And they also use these children as anchors. So first they send the kids because nobody's going to say anything about sending these kids. And then later on, they send the parents and their excuse is, well, their kid already had refugee status and they came here. But putting these kids into Western countries and their families into Western countries is not a good idea. We already see the division that's happening within the EU and other places like Canada, Australia, and the US. What we need is Muslim countries to step up and take Muslim refugees because they're going to integrate much more easily into the society, and there's not going to be this rift.
However, we do know that a lot of these Muslim countries, namely Egypt, Lebanon, even Iraq, refuse to take Palestinian refugees because or Palestinians in general, because they have precedent of bad things that have happened when they have tried to do so. Also, with the kids, yes,
but there are the Abraham Peace Accords. So I would have liked to see something be worked in with taking refugee children and families from one of these countries and giving a monetary incentive to those countries.
The thing is, they might know in those Muslim countries what type of education, what type of indoctrination in a way these kids have been subjected to, and it is all against the West. That is something that is very uncomfortable for people to talk about and to not blame the children, but if the children, and we see it here in the West with the wokeness that's happening, if the children have been indoctrinated and taught a lot of the things that are not convenient for the West to have within their own countries, then we do have to talk about the kids, other than being just anchors, then also being used to serve different purposes, let's just say.
Okay, let's go into Grokpedia. It's going to be renamed, and I actually like this. I did not like the name Grokpedia. I don't mind the name Grok. It's short enough, but when you start saying Grokpedia, it didn't have a good sound to me. I like this a little bit better, but
From Marionov, well, Elon to remain Grokipedia to Encyclopedia Galactica, and that's a big deal. Elon's taken notes from a 1940s book series where humans build a galaxy-sized library to stop their empire from crashing. Yep, nerd stuff, but Elon is dead serious about it. The new name comes from Isaac Asimov's foundation, where the Encyclopedia Galactica is like the entire internet, and your smartest teachers rolled into one, but for an entire galaxy.
Well, and the reason I think this is a good idea is because people aren't going to call it Encyclopedia Galactica. They're going to shorten the name to Encyclopedia.
Or Galactica.
And it gives it a lot more relevance, or calling it the encyclopedia. It's going to be known as the online encyclopedia, I think. So Grokipedia kind of sounds jokey a little bit to me.
It's weird that they misspelled it here. Because it's Galactica and they wrote it Galcatica. I think it would go, because I mean, an encyclopedia is already a thing. So I'm guessing people will shorten it to Galactica.
And Grokipedia has been great, especially when compared to Wikipedia. Wikipedia is going to have to clean up their act if they want to survive. And I think that was the whole point of Grokipedia in the first place.
Wikipedia.
Oh, sorry, Wikipedia. What did I say?
Wikipedia.
Same thing.
No,
okay.
the same thing.
Let's move on.
Let's move on to someone who's running for governor of Idaho, and it's an interesting person. So transgender socialist Maxine Durand is running for governor of Idaho.
And there's quite a few people running on a socialist platform, and quite a few people that won on a socialist platform. So this is going to be the plan going into the midterms in 2028. And I think they're going to want to try to keep tariffs in place, or some kind of tariffs to finance this socialist utopia.
But they'll call it something different.
Yeah.
I'm Maxine Durand, and I'm running for governor of Idaho in 2026 as an independent socialist candidate. I'm running as an independent socialist. I'm also running as a proud member of Democratic Socialists of America.
Can she run a brush
Well, the fact that they're just openly claiming that they're socialist, and everybody knows that socialism is just the pathway to communism, and they're doing it openly, and people are voting for this thing.
I'm a member of the Southern Idaho DSA chapter, but I've also been endorsed by the chapters in Boise and the Idaho Falls and Pocatello area. It's important to me to talk about what I am, because I think it's important to take that name back for ourselves. People say socialist like it's just automatically a bad word, and the reality is it does have a meaning. Look at my platform, take a look at what I'm running for. Yes, it's socialism, but these are the kinds of policies that I think most Idahoans agree we need right now. I'm Maxine Durand, and I'm running for...
Okay.
Do they, or do they not understand it properly?
We can go right into the next clips because they're kind of interrelated. And this lady just actually won the Seattle election, I believe, for mayor.
And again, it's Seattle, so of course. But from Amuse, Seattle Mayor-elect Katie Wilson promises a full socialist smorgasbord, calling for guaranteed housing, universal child health care, free K through 8 summer care, social housing, shifting land and wealth from corporations to the community control.
Yeah, and if they can find a way to fund this from outside organizations or outside NGOs, and it goes well into the midterms and into 2028, there's a good chance the Democrats are actually going to have a platform to run on here. And like I said, these are going to be empty promises, because when they actually win hard power, if that happens in 2028, I don't think you're going to see anything materialize except for corruption.
There's an awful lot that I want to accomplish as mayor. I want everyone in this great city of ours to have a roof over their head. I want universal childcare and free K-8 summer care. I want world-class mass transit. I want great, safe public spaces where kids can run around with abandon. I want stable, affordable housing for renters. I want social housing. I want much more land and wealth to be owned and stewarded by communities instead of corporations. I want a robust economy with thriving small businesses, great living wage jobs, and strong rights for workers. I want a city where everyone has the basics of a dignified life, including healthy food, access to health care, and supportive communities. I want a city where your health and your life expectancy and your children's future doesn't depend on your zip code or your race.
Okay, that's pretty good. And she says, I want to know what you can deliver and what your plan is to deliver that. The truth is there is no plan to deliver. If she gets in and she may succeed, the plan is short term, get outside funding so the Democratic Party will have a platform in 2028 and in the midterms, but they can't deliver on it long term or on a nationwide basis. They can only do it in very regional locations like New York or like Seattle, and they want to point to those things going into the midterms and 2028.
Because they know from precedent also that a lot of people will talk about socialism and say, well, all of these examples failed. If they can, in the short run, point at those cities and those places where, thanks to outside financing, all of these free things materialize, then they can continue with the lie that they're going to be giving free stuff. However, when anybody says something is free, there's a cost to things. So who is actually paying for it? Because nothing is free.
Oh, and Trump has a strategy, and it's based upon these tariffs. So these tariffs sit, we're going to get to see if it kind of works. It's going to take 4 years to kind of materialize. If he loses in the midterms, it's not going to be good. We need to at least see what happens in the 4-year plan and give him a real chance for it to succeed, because it's a complete 180 from what the Uniparty was doing for the last 20 to 30 years. This is a complete new economic model. So far, it's doing well. They said the nation was going to collapse within 30 days. It's not. Let's see Donald Trump through at least until 2028.
And we were speaking about RFK Jr. and his ex-running mate, Nicole Shanahan, but now she continues to talk about important things from Camus. We are now on the precipice of being forced to inject our cattle with the mRNA jibby jab. So just like we talk about with medical freedom for humans and the desire to not have mandates telling us what we have to put in our bodies, food freedom is an extension of that. We want the ability to eat meat that isn't full of these
Well, this is already kind of happening. At least that's what I thought. I know it's happening in Canada, and Canada is also able to put lab-grown meat on the shelves and not label it as lab-grown meat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they passed a bill to that effect.
We are now on the precipice of being forced.
Yeah, I was watching some Canadians talk about Mexican meat today and how it's of a lower grade. You don't even know what grade your meat is in Canada. They're literally putting lab-grown meat, and you don't know what you're eating. And you want to call Mexican meat a lower grade? At least we have real cows still.
Kind of.
Inject our cattle with the mRNA vaccine. So just like we talk about medical freedom for humans and the desire to not have mandates telling us what we have to put in our bodies, food freedom is an extension of that. We want the ability to eat meat that isn't full of these inputs. We'd also like to be fully informed. I mean, let's talk about the Nuremberg trials, right? The idea that humans have a right to be fully informed about what they're putting into their bodies. Food freedom is a really big part of that.
And Nicole Shanahan is absolutely phenomenal. I like to see her have a bigger role in this administration and definitely in the next administration. She's definitely one of the good people that knows how to do the work and has the right people to kind of call on to help her, whether that's from the big tech side, whether that's from RFK or other relationships she's made. So what else I was going to say is currently in the EU, they're injecting their cows with chemicals to make them have less gas, and cows are dropping dead by the thousands over there.
And we were talking about this during the interview that I was on today, that, for example, with food, with things like these chemicals and jibby jabs that they want to put into not just cattle, but also GMO everything, modifying organisms, and then hiding original seeds in a bunker somewhere up in the north of Europe. With all of that, it's not just a local issue. Yes, here they're talking about the US, but it is also happening in Mexico. They just passed legislation here in Mexico about that. It's happening in Canada. In Canada, they're culling ostriches, and they're getting rid of ostriches just because the government decided to. So the health aspect of it can impact on a more worldwide basis, because that's what they're planning to do. That is one of the ways that this globalized government, or non-elected government that is global, like with Bill Gates and others, that is what they want to do to every country. And if each country realizes that that's happening to others, then I think there's more of a playbook for everybody involved.
This could easily be a winning issue for Sheinbaum, and this is not somebody I like, but I like even when people that I don't like that are in power take up these issues, and she has in a very, very small way by banning GMO corn, but I would like to see that broaden out.
They've changed that a bit. I still have to look into it, but people are upset, and the farmers here in Mexico are upset about taxes and stuff they're imposing on that. But I got to do more research, so I don't.
Okay, well, I have praised her in the past for that, and I do like that general policy. I don't want to see all these GMO corns or these Monsanto seeds come into Mexico. I would like to see Monsanto seeds generally banned in Mexico.
However, speaking of Mexico and a bunch of other countries, digital ID, here it is already mandatory, but, well, quote unquote mandatory, they can't implement it yet. But from Laura Ingraham, the digital ID warning, they don't want you to hear. Digital ID start as voluntary, then they become mandatory with rewards and then punishments. This is the path to digital totalitarianism, and it's happening everywhere.
And I'm glad Fox News picked up on this, because this is one of those issues that they're going to try to bring in under the radar, but at least Fox News is kind of talking about it and not in a positive way, which is good.
The person that Laura Ingraham is interviewing is Michael Schellenberger. If you don't follow him, go follow him, because he is very smart and talks about a lot of these specific issues as well.
Independent journalist Michael Schellenberger has been digging into the digital ID issue. He just released a lengthy piece on this on his Substack called Public. He joins us now with his thoughts. Michael, look, the argument is it's like it'll help thwart illegal immigration, ID fraud, streamline healthcare services. Sounds fantastic. What the heck's the problem?
Right. Hey, great to be with you, Laura. Yeah, I mean, another conspiracy theory that has started coming true. I mean, we saw this announcement in September. It took everybody by surprise. The World Economic Forum had been pushing digital IDs, the United Nations, the European Union, Britain. Of course, the really terrifying example is China, which uses digital IDs and a social credit score to control speech and to control what people think and say online. I mean, it could come in a lot of different ways. They'll start voluntary, then they'll make it mandatory. They'll have rewards, and then they'll have punishments. It's quite terrifying. And when you just listen to what the advocates for digital IDs say, it's terrifying. And, you know, Laura, one thing I learned from this last round of investigations is that this is a huge cybersecurity threat. The idea that, I mean, imagine if you get hacked in one of the many websites that you log into. Imagine everything suddenly being hacked because it's all centralized in a single place. That cybersecurity threat alone ought to be enough to kill the digital ID. But again, this is potentially digital totalitarianism.
Yeah, and Apple had just approved today you can put your passport on your phone. Do not do this.
Well, they're calling it a digital ID.
Yeah, do not do this. They're trying to make it easy, and they want people to naturally adopt it. They're going to really reveal the mask if people don't adopt it, and then they forcefully have to push this on people.
And here in Mexico, again, our president first said that it was obligatory to use the biometric digital ID that they want to impose. Then she said it wasn't going to be forcefully used on people, and now it is again. But we're heading over to RUMBLE because the rest of the stories are a bit too spicy regarding climate, jibby jabs, etc. So we'll see you over there. Please do subscribe here on YouTube because we are trying to get to 1,000 subscribers. And we have quite a few more stuff coming up in the next few weeks and days. So stay tuned for that.
Okay.
Same channel name over at RUMBLE, and we'll see you over there.
And when make sure they don't restart the stream on YouTube.
I don't know how to do that.
Oh, okay.